morning, good morning, good
Good
morning. Welcome back,
morning.
everybody, to the I Win Morning Show. Now, it is early on Monday
Ooh.
morning. Of course, it is Dr. King's holiday. Most people are probably resting. Some people may be up getting ready for activities and service, which I hope many are doing. And of course, tuning in to the King service. But today is the King holiday celebration. So
Yes.
definitely want to start off by honoring Dr. King and acknowledging that. And good morning, Dr. Danny.
Good morning, Mr.
We
Allen.
are back for the I Win Morning
Woo,
Show
woo, on a Monday.
on a Monday. Now, of course, we are waiting for our good friend and I Win Morning Show buddy, JT, to join us. However, while he's joining us and of course doing what he does, which is saving the world, um, we
Right.
are gonna get into an amazing conversation today, and super excited. Now, Dr. Danny, how was the weekend? How have things been going since the last time
Yeah.
we visited here and been together?
Oh my goodness. Things have been great. This has been a really good year, and I am putting it out there. I want everybody to just say 2023 is the year that makes up for all of the challenging years before. I'm feeling the positive vibes, and it seems very authentic. I don't know if you're feeling that. It's not like people are saying I'm hopeful just to say it, but they're really feeling it. And so I'm feeling
Yeah.
that energy right now. It seems really intentional. It seems like people are out there like really like hitting the ground running from the beginning. So anyway, with that being said, this weekend was really cool for me because I don't have kids. Good morning. I don't have kids, but I have nephews. And the best thing happened, Jason, this weekend. My little nephew has grown up and it just hit me. He's grown. He is getting really obsessed with creating videos. My
Oh,
my
cool.
uh my father had gifted him a camera for Christmas. So now he wants to learn how to edit. And I don't know if you know this, but I went to school for television and film. So anytime anybody wants to like do things like that and find the joy and fun in it, I'm all for it. It's like, oh my God, my little nephew is growing up to be like his auntie. I'm sorry, my sister. My sister who's like, oh my God, I had your child.
That's amazing though. And you said editing, so I'm like, okay,
Yes.
JT, we may have another intern coming in to help
Right.
with editing. I love that. That is awesome, Dr. Danny. And
Yeah.
we're moving
Yeah.
into that space. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you had an amazing weekend. That is great to hear. Young people keep exploring, keep doing things. We got to kind of turn this narrative around that our young people are just lost. That's something I feel like every generation has heard, and
Yeah.
the stigma they have placed on them. So
Yeah.
super excited to hear about that. And again, guys, we are doing some amazing work around STEM and STEAM, and also
Mhm.
college readiness. So check out what our foundations are doing because there's going to be
Yeah.
some great things to come this year. Dr. Danny, I would have to say I am reminded that, Mariah Carey said love takes time, right?
Yes.
Things take time. Uh, it is amazing how you can make so many plans. And let me tell you, I know we're not even getting into our conversation just yet.
Wait, I was gonna say, wait a minute. Are you telling me your plan, what you had
We're
done this
not getting into the
weekend?
conversation just yet.
Okay.
But I am always sharing things, and I'm just like, oh my God, it's amazing how you think. Like today, I'm like, okay, it's Monday. My podcast is supposed to come back this evening, and we're just
Ooh.
gonna get on. We're just gonna talk. A lot of times, things don't have to be so perfectly planned, and I learned that this week
Yeah.
in my travels. In the beginning of the week, or beginning of last week, I was on the West Coast in Arizona, and yeah, it's been a year ago today that my student Isaiah passed away. Um,
Mm.
when the onset of the pandemic was happening,
Yeah.
and um, when I was in Arizona, I was able to present at a convening with a group of people,
Hmm.
and our project won. We were able to win a $75,000 grant to help families and children who
Nice.
learn differently and who have disabilities. And
Hmm.
one of the things we're highlighting are invisible disabilities. because one of the things that we learned in going through the transition of our student, our dear Isaiah, is that we didn't understand individualized health plans, and
Yeah.
that there are a lot of children who have underlying health conditions. And so, in a sense, in all of my educational advocacy, I have now become an advocate um, for that. And so it's an amazing. I got a chance to talk to her parents. Even at her death, her family was brought back together.
Yeah.
They were able to have another child, which was a blessing. And so, as they commemorate and celebrate her life, we're still doing the same thing.
Sure.
Excited about that. I see some of the parents from the school are on, and my prayer is that Seven Pillars will be the school that we're able to partner with uh, to help elevate these stories. And so that's how the week started for me, and then it ended back on the West Coast.
You've
So
been busy.
this week in California, and I was able to connect with family to celebrate my cousin's 16th birthday, which is a major thing.
Nice.
Birthday is today as well, and so we were able to celebrate and get together, and it was amazing. So I had a really busy weekend, but a good weekend, and I was just reminded in reading. Let me show you guys what I'm reading. Well, what I was reading.
Oh, is that Viola Davis?
Viola Davis. This was a Christmas
Ooh.
gift from my parents, and I have finished now the whole book. But it is simply amazing that we were able to connect to so many things in this book. I was sitting next to a lady, and she was like, "This must be a really good book," because you were like, I saw you go through all of the emotions. I was excited. I was like, "Oh yes," she had some moments. I was like, "Okay, West Side, come through."
Yeah.
But it was also some moments that challenged me. And so I was like, wow, this book is amazing. So if you have anything on your plate that you're dealing with and you need a little inspiration, um, check out Viola Davis's book. It's super, super dope. It's called Finding Me. Right?
Finding Me.
Finding Me. And it's a great way to start off the year. Finding me. Let me get connected to that. So
Now, Jason, I gotta know what's your secret, because I want to be more intentional in reading, and I don't know how you find the time to read when you're out here in these streets doing work and making change and podcasts. So, do you have some recommendations or some suggestions on how we can get started?
I have always been a reader.
Okay.
While my parents had me when they were at Hampton, and they were in college, and while they were matriculating and finishing college, I was with my great grandparents.
Mhm.
And because they did not finish grade school past third grade, they made sure I was outside playing, I was in the garden, um, I was connecting with other children, but also that I was reading. And I have always loved reading. And so my students would tell you, if I'm walking in the hallway and I know we're going somewhere, I would tell them. So this is a trick, right? I know this is it. I hope none of my former principals ever hear this, but when we would have to go to assembly programs and meetings, and I would say, listen, bring you a book, because I know it's going to be boring. And you just have you a book you reading, and you every few minutes you look up and nod and smile. Then you just go back to reading your book. Then you look up, because we knew that they were wasting our time on these things that are not going to help us. They're not beneficial. So I always try to find time. That was my analogy. I always try to find time to read, especially if I'm traveling. I love to read while in the car, or definitely if I'm on a plane ride. So I can read about 2 books flying to California.
Well, okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question. Not will you be my boyfriend, yes or no, or maybe, but will you be my accountability partner, my reading accountability partner?
Oh yeah, I'm one of the things that I've been asked and tasked to do on my new job with the National Parents Union. It's coming up with a book club for us, and so I would challenge, especially those of us who are in a nonprofit space. My library is a little further from me now, so I was going to go pull a book, but it's a book by a dear friend of mine and fellow activist Kimberly Jones. It's called How We Can Win. How We Can Win. It's such an amazing book, and it actually fits the I Win Morning Show theme. So,
Nice.
you know what, guys, go and check out those titles. Finding Me, again, Viola Davis. How We Can Win by Kimberly Jones. She's a local artist. She's an activist. And she's really intentional. You may have recently seen her on the news. She's always advocating with families about what their rights are and making sure that the system is held accountable. And aren't we talking about system accountability on MLK Day? So,
okay.
So yeah, that's a little tidbit about reading. Just find you a good book. And if you have kids, you know, Ashley will tell you, I used to do the comic book club at the school, and you know, there are kids. Let's break a stigma. Boys are not the only people who like comics, okay? Because a lot of my ladies, they love the comics. They were into it. So, you know, just finding different materials. There are still magazines. Breakbox Thought Collective is my cousin's organization. Shout out to them in California. They have a magazine, Ashe Magazine, and they are creating their own stories for young people and teenagers and for families to get connected to. So see, sometimes you may have to create the book. You may have to tell the story. So don't get me in teacher mode though. But reading is fundamental. I'm glad we went down that road.
Me too, because I learned something new about you today. And I love what Ash wrote on here, which is readers are leaders.
Yes, readers are leaders. And it's amazing. While we're in the realm of civil rights, one of the things that I love kicking off the year is that we would always do a legacy project. And my students loved it. They would have to research the Divine Nine and HBCUs. They would have to research civil rights leaders. I would always tell them MLK Day is one of my favorite holidays outside of Juneteenth because it was to honor Dr. King. But if you had a really good teacher, you knew that it was Dr. King and it was all of the civil rights and notable leaders whose lives were sacrificed for us to be able to do and be in positions that we're in now. And so it was always the acknowledgement of those who have sacrificed so many things for us to be able to be where we are today. So, so now we're going to get into some affirmation this morning. Dr. Danny has the red hair. I think we went for a red theme. I tried to have some red in here.
I love it. We fire, honey.
Representing love on Dr. King's Day. But Dr. Danny, I'm going to pass the mic to you to go ahead and kick us off with some inspiration. Now, if you're tuned into this conversation today, we going there. It's going to be deep. Y'all know it's MLK Day. So are you ready to drink? Y'all better get into it with us. But Dr. Danny's going to bring us some great inspiration. Get your notepads ready. Let's go.
Awesome. All right. Well, I am going to wear my rainbow glasses today because I believe that this affirmation is delightful. And when I think of rainbows, I think of just like, it's just so delightful. So here it is. You ready for this? Today, I will be a good listener. I will listen to show that I care. I will listen with compassion. I will listen to build connections. I will listen with the expectation that I too will be listened to. That is the affirmation.
Let me tell you, I always like Dr. Danny to be on repeat because I'm like, wait a minute, that was amazing. I had a beautiful conversation with my cousin this weekend about the power of intentional listening and being able to hear someone's heart. So Dr. Danny, run that back for us just one more time.
Of course, because I want you to listen. All right. Today, I will be a good listener. I will listen to show that I care. I will listen with compassion. I will listen to build connections. I will listen with the expectation that I too will be listened to.
That's awesome. I'm stuck in that moment because I'm thinking about my cousin Jamila and the work that she does, especially in the healing space. And a lot of times we as healers, as teachers, as parents, we're always actively listening. But then I remembered that the person who is actively listening too often doesn't feel heard. Their voices aren't listened to. Their stories aren't consumed or heard or embraced. And so for those who are active listeners, who are good listeners, it's okay. We hear you. We connect with you. And it's also, we got to be a little bit more intentional about that in that transaction because people need a lot. People are hungry for healing, for change, uh, for more, for better. And a lot of times they want somebody to listen to them, but they don't know how to really be in a position to hear the hearts of others, especially the hearts of those who are pouring into them on a human level. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we place people on this, all connected to Dr. King, y'all. We put people on these pedestals. Uh, we put them really high up, and we don't get a chance to really connect to their heart. We hear their words, we get into their stories, but do we connect to their heart? And so that's hard work, being able to truly listen. And if we look at what our public schools are telling us about how our children are illiterate,
Yeah.
reading is not just picking up a book and looking at the words. It's also critical thinking. It's also speaking. It's communication. It's listening skills. Sherry Hall is on, and I know she knows all too well about these things. It's all connected. And so, Dr. Danny, thank you for encouraging us to not just be in a position to hear a good word, but also to listen to the heart of those who are pouring into us. Come on,
Yes.
Dr. Danny is always coming through uh, with the words. So I'm so thankful for that, Dr. Danny. Now, JT is saving the world. So he is, as he's working, we're missing our inspiration, but I feel like we got a lot of inspiration going on this morning
We do.
to fill in the gap.
But let me tell you something, Jason. You know what I was really inspired by? Now, I am not a sorority girl,
Oh, okay.
but I was so inspired this weekend by all of the love for Founders Day. Did you see it?
Yes,
I mean,
I
never,
did.
I don't know if it was just like I missed it every other year, but this year I was feeling like I wanted to be somewhere at a party. I
Well,
was
shout
really
out.
inspired by that connection.
Let me tell you, the other reason why this is a big weekend and one of the celebrations of the year that I love is because we get to celebrate two amazing groups.
Mm,
Um, one are the Deltas. I have a lot of Deltas in my family. We were able to
okay.
celebrate them. And I was with cousins who were Deltas. So I was like, yes, especially my older cousins who um, do such great work, and they pour so much into me as I'm pouring into other people. It was amazing to be able to celebrate with them, and also the acknowledgement of loved ones who were connected to these organizations. My late and great aunt Paulette, Dr. Paulette Fleming, she was a Delta. She helped to create the Betty Shabazz Charter School that
Mm,
is up north, but also so many schools and art programs that she's impacted across the nation. And so it's also a time to reflect and honor those women who have done such phenomenal things in our communities. And then also the AKAs. Now, my sisters are AKAs. They are always pretty girls to me. They were originally my pretty girls as a
they
big
are pretty
brother to
girls.
protect them and make sure that they are good in the world. And so they are AKAs, and uh, just excited to be able to celebrate them as well. So it is, Danielle, it's just such a beautiful sight to see them
Yeah.
collectively doing things, even as separate organizations coming together and doing such amazing work. So shout
Yeah.
out to those organizations that were celebrating this weekend and probably still are celebrating a little bit
Right.
right
I would
now.
think so.
Um,
Yes.
but yes, it was a beautiful sight, Dr. Danny. Beautiful
Mm-hmm.
sight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, we kind of got a little bit of everything out. So, yeah, everybody is aware of what has happened over the weekend. If you know some AKAs and Deltas who may be up this morning getting ready to do some service, go ahead and tell them why they walking on to that service project, get connected to the I Win Morning Show, because we are
Yes.
shouting them out. Now, listen, guys, we want to go right to our big question of the day as we are almost at 7:40. And we want to be really intentional about this conversation. Again, we have had a lot that has also gone on in our community in regards to leadership, in regards to how we're planning things, in regards to, how we engage with people. And so while we're on the topic and conversation of what is your vision, what are you doing, what are you dreaming, uh, I want us to kind of be intentional about this question. And so we're going to get right into it. Our big question for today is, how far is too far to push people?
Oof.
Now I'm gonna say that again because I know y'all were thinking that we were gonna get into like community service and
No.
all of that. It's gonna connect. I want you guys to look at this a little bit differently with us. So our big question again is how far is too far to push people? And if you are in a sorority or fraternity, if you're in a band fraternity, then you may be able to connect with how we bring people into the organizations. How do we push students when we're wanting them to achieve, right? If you're a parent and you want your child to be exceptional, you want them to be amazing. How far is too far to push people? And so this is again another conversation about self-care, about how we're taking care of our hearts, but also how we're taking care of each other. So let's get right into it, Dr. Danny. And if you're in the comments, we definitely want to hear from you. But how far is too far to push people? And so, Dr. Danny, let's start with you.
Okay.
Open us on up.
Well, it's funny because I just gave a discussion on potential, and what was really eye opening was that people really don't know that they have potential. I think we take that for granted. I think that in the dynamics that have shifted in families, but also just in society, we have people who are walking around like the walking dead and don't know that they have potential because no one cared to first tell them, but they never had people to push them, to encourage them. And I don't mean just like, hard, tough love. I mean, just the soft, gentle words of encouragement. And so I think you have to meet people where they are. With students, it's, you're meeting them in a classroom and they're designed to learn in that space. So the idea is they can't learn until they're challenged. And so I think understanding you can challenge students enough to get them thinking and to get them at the edge of their seat. But when you notice that, and Jason, I know you know this more than anything, but when you notice a child is getting so frustrated that they're on that verge of quitting, you got to realize that as a teacher, as a mentor, you don't want a person to hate what they're doing. You don't want a person to hate the subject. You don't want a person to hate the drive and motivation to be better. You don't want them to be resentful. So if you can find that fine line, and that also comes with like starting with relationship building. As you're building relationships with people, you learn more and more about what are their buttons and how far to push an individual. So I would start with that. What do you think?
I think that's a great start. And I'm glad we started with students and young people because this generation, especially Generation Alpha, I've seen in a lot of my young cousins, it's a real battle against depression and mental health issues because, in a sense, they are really pushed. We are really pushing them. And so, if you are a parent, if you are an educator, if you are someone that has nieces, nephews, if you're a church leader, this conversation is important because here are the things that we forget. So y'all get some paper. I want us to really be intentional about this. When we think about students, here are the things that we forget. We forget that public education was not designed for our children to succeed. Let's start at number one. Public education was not designed for our children to succeed. Right. So that within itself has to be a reminder that we are sending our kids into a system, and this is warfare. Okay, now this is my Dr. King hat. This is my MLK hat, my Medgar Evers hat. We are sending them into spiritual, physical, emotional warfare every day. Yes. Because they are going in wanting to be their best selves, wanting to be creative, wanting to be connected, but then they have teachers. I have to remind people, every teacher ain't like me. Every teacher ain't like Sherry. Right. I'm just being real with y'all. Yeah. Every teacher is not like us. So there are some teachers who do subscribe to the fact that, Black and brown people are illiterate. They don't value education. This isn't worth my time. Let me just come in. And so these are things that young people are against every day. And they're constantly pushing against that. Yeah. Constantly pushing, trying to break out of the box. Here's the other thing, right? our schools don't have culturally inclusive curriculum. So our children don't even really see themselves in what's being taught. So let's be real about that. They're pushing against trying to find themselves in a space that doesn't represent them. So
Yeah.
when Dr. Danny has opened this conversation up with where she started with young people, we have to realize that all the kids are bad and they don't want to be and get, yeah, there are gonna be some nuances, right? That happen. But at the end of the day, our young people are going into battle every day, pushing against a system that tells them that you're illiterate, you're bad,
Right.
you're not good enough, you're
Right.
not welcomed here, you are causing havoc, you are too loud, you are too big, you are not friendly enough, and the list goes on. They are pushing against these things every day. So with the I Win Morning Show, our goal is to help challenge the way we think about these things. And so, Dr. Danny, again, thank you for opening the door for us to shine
Yeah.
a light on what our young people are going through and dealing with, because they too are pushing against a lot of things.
But you know what? And y'all probably shut me down when I say this, or some of the parents will. And this is all in love. But when your home life and the educational system are not aligned, your teachers can only push your students but so far. If you are not going to reinforce the positive of pushing and helping a student reach their maximum potential, well, everything I'm doing in a classroom is in vain with your child if you're not going to reinforce it. If that is not what you are believing in the best practices of what you're instilling in your child at home, which is I mean, we're hoping that you're saying as a parent, I want my child to be the best. And so I'm sending him to the school and to the teachers that also believe I want my child to be my best, be the best. It's
Mhm.
like, well, then what's happening? This poor child is conflicted with trying to figure out how to navigate through life at school and how to navigate through life at home. We've got two different types of belief systems here. And this is where you really find the divide of school and home and community. You know, it's like we are not on the same page.
No,
And
you
there's
go
we
ahead.
can point fingers all day, but I don't know who is at fault. We're all at fault. We have all failed our children. And so and that's why I do the work I do, because it's always about the community too.
Yeah.
There are
But
pieces.
Dr. Danny, you're taking us down a good road, because we're coming to parents, because
Yeah,
parents are also pushed. It's
that's right.
challenging. I
Yes.
was able to sit with my cousin this weekend, and the battle of parents having to put their kids into a charter school or a public school because of work, or for, doing their life work or their mission work. And
Yeah.
so it's not easy for parents also to sit and know that this is what we have to do, and I'm hoping that this is the best setting for my child. And it also allows us to reminds us that parents are valued in this space. We need parents in the
Yes.
educational space,
Absolutely.
and parents are pushing because parents are too often being pushed out of
That's right.
the school. And it's two dynamics.
Ooh,
We have
that's
parents who
good.
have been failed by a system they were already pushed out,
Yeah.
and then have to come back to a system and say, wow, you still have to educate now my children or my grandchildren. And so that's a heavy thing to be now out of a system that wasn't well for you, that pushed you out, that tried to silence you, that tried to push you down various pipelines. And now you're back in that system battling it because you're trying to push in to be connected to your child's education, and you're not being allowed. Because
Yeah.
let's be honest, every school doesn't have a welcoming environment. Every superintendent and school board is not trying to pass policies that are, transparent, like in Cobb County around their um, procurement policies. And the
Yeah.
superintendent can say, oh, okay, hey, I want to see this money go to A, B, and C. It's three companies, that they just say I want to go with them because that's what I choose to do. And it's no level of accountability. And parents are pushing for accountability, and they continue to be pushed away. So I look at it from the perspective of we're all pushing. Parents are being pushed out. Students are being pushed out. Teachers are being silenced. And to be quite honest, teachers are being pushed out. So
Right.
we're all pushing, and
Yeah.
it still connects back to our question: how far? It's too far to push people. And so I'm loving the comments, loving the connections. Dr. Raymond Burke Allen says there's a big disconnection.
Yeah.
We're looking at Sherry's comment. Our communities, homes, churches need to be able to put the wounds of students and acquire the educational system. We need to be able to come in and say, hey, we're taking back our own. I'm thinking about grammar schools that my great grandparents and great grandparents, they started with pennies on the dime. Now, parents, let me get my gavel.
Get your gavel, baby. Get your gavel.
I got to make an announcement. We have to be willing to invest in education. And I know poverty. I know I get everything that you could tell me. But when I can go back to my great grandparents' journals and they were building churches, it ain't got to be these major things that we see. You know, everybody ain't going to have a T.D. Jakes church. Everybody ain't going to have a Ron Clark school building. But they had quality buildings that were teaching us life skills, literacy, our own heritage, how to be a good citizen for not just us, but also someone that can withstand and fight against racism and prejudice and sexism. So we created our own for our own. It was an investment. People came together. I may not have 2 pennies to rub together, but I can cook the food. I may not be able to bring 10 cents, but I can clean up. I may not be able to donate $1, but I could come in every day for 2 hours and do it. So I'm just challenging us also to say that we have an opportunity, if we're really intentional about Dr. King's dream, we have an opportunity to build our own. Now, I just want to throw that out there because we can do it, but are we pushing ourselves to do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we live in this culture where people abuse power. There is this thing where people are power hungry, and again, y'all might kick me off, but let's go there real quick. Let's go.
You know, I ain't kicking nobody off.
Again, I'm not a sorority girl, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of me out there, but when we're talking about pushing and the culture of pushing, the stereotype of sororities and fraternities is hazing. And that's an example of pushing too far. Now, whether this is true or not, it is a stereotype. And so, again, this culture of pushing, it's why does that exist? And does it end? It doesn't end when you're a child graduating from school. It still carries over into college life, right?
Yep.
You are being pushed academically. You are being pushed socially. How far do you push to be accepted? How far will you allow yourself to be pushed to be connected and for people to call you family? So, I mean, it's really, you really have to understand, and we always talk about boundaries. We seem to go back to boundaries every time we talk, but it's understanding the culture of pushing. It's really ask yourself one question: why am I being pushed? And why am I allowing myself to be pushed?
Repeat that one more time, Dr. Danny.
Why am I being pushed? And why am I allowing myself to be pushed? And I say allowing myself because there's a level of accountability that you yourself have to have too.
All right, come on now. It's a level of accountability that we have to have for ourselves.
That's right.
Dr. Danny, I also want to throw this question in. Where are we being pushed to? Where are we? And I'm thinking about when I teach and talk to my students about the civil rights movement, the Black liberation movement, the Black power movement, where we often focus on the leaders, but we don't focus on what went wrong.
Right.
And when I teach my students about these movements, we look at what went wrong so that as we are having to navigate through these things, we can pick up the pieces and do something different. We can look at a different angle where they had momentum and they were all in, but they weren't looking at imposters that were going to be coming in the form of, let me not go down that road, but they weren't looking for imposters that were coming from within. Yeah. And so that was the thing. Now, how do we check and make sure that people are authentic? Yeah. That the people who are pushing us, are they pushing us to greatness? Or are they trying to push us over a cliff? And see, sometimes you don't know the difference because people are yearning for healing. They're yearning for love. They're yearning for acceptance. right? This is how people
Yeah.
get taken advantage of. This is how our children are getting molested and mishandled right up underneath our noses because
Mhm.
we're thinking that people are trying to elevate and push them into greatness, and they really pushing them over into a cliff.
They're
They're
trying to
pushing them,
dominate, not
right,
elevate.
right.
Dominate.
They're pushing them
Yeah.
into pipelines that are not beneficial for the community, for our families, for our culture. And so push is big because see, everybody want to be elevated. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to be in these spaces that the media and society is telling us that, oh, okay, this is where you have to be. This is where you need to be.
Yes.
But we aren't looking at the intention. And Dr. Danny, I'm thankful that you highlighted that. It's the intention behind the people who are pushing you. Okay. I'm going to stop right there. Keep going, Dr. Danny. I'm going to stop right there.
I have a question for you specifically, Mr.
Okay.
Allen.
I'm here.
Can you think of a time when you were pushed and it wasn't comfortable for you, but you're grateful for it now? Do you have a time? I have several, so.
I'm going to go down this road because I'm a sharer and, I don't mind. When I was in college, I had got connected with a group of people. We started a campus ministry. It was actually after I was the SGA president, which was really big because people were like, the SGA president got in the gospel choir and is out here like ministering. And I was like, yeah, we doing SGA, we doing politics, but I guess I kind of affectionately shout out to Anashay and Tanya and Nehemiah, have come into my own as being the ratchet reverend, because I can preach to you in one moment and then I can be real grassroots in the next. And so I remember a church that we were connected to and we were being pushed to, well, share the things that you're battling with and share the things that you're going through. And I didn't realize that it was a tactic to push me out. But I was like, let me be obedient and share. And so, of course, many people know, like, hey, Ripley's Believe It or Not, Dr. Raymond Burke Allen, that's my husband. That's my other half. That's my partner, right? So when I shared with the ministers that, this is my sexuality, this is what I prefer, and I knew that being in the church, that's a big thing, for the church. And because I was one of the strongest and most powerful leaders, that was a tool for them to use to push me out of ministry. So they didn't want to give me a minister's license or give me a platform to be able to minister. And that almost destroyed me because they were trying to push me into a place to be silenced.
Yeah.
And I realized from that, you have to be very mindful of people's intentions, because sometimes people want you to give them things and, to be open about things so they can push you into a narrative and push you into a direction so they have ownership and control over your voice and your gift. And too often that happens to people who are young, Black, gifted, because people are scared of what we bring to the table. And so it's a learning lesson. Sometimes you go through it, but when you go through it and you're able to come out of it, you're able to say, hey, I don't need you to push me in that direction. I'm going in this direction. I appreciate your feedback. Yeah. That's why I tell people it's a level of freedom that comes with that too, because when you're confined and you understand that now I can get my own air, I can breathe on my own. I'm not dependent on what people are thinking about me or what expectations they're putting on me. Yeah. I can push myself. And so that was my experience, one of them, but that was my story to your question, Dr. Danny.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. And thanks for sharing that. I believe that where we fall short and when pushing too far is really like a problem is when we want something more for a person that we're pushing more than that person wants it themselves.
True.
And so that is exactly where the disconnect is. It's do you really understand what I want before you're pushing me and encouraging me? Have you consulted with me that this is the direction I want to go in? Do you know where I want to go?
That's good.
Because then you'll know where to push me, which areas I need more encouragement in. And so you have to be clear on understanding that I might not necessarily know where this person wants to go, because then you'll know. I think somebody had asked or made a comment. You'll know how far to push somebody.
That's good. And again, in pushing people, what does that? I'm gonna go down that road in a minute. I want to highlight Shan's comment though. I thought it was amazing. Shout out to Shan and her daughter. She came here ready. And that, I think that speaks to what you just said, that she allowed her to do what she was called to do. That
Yeah.
means that as a parent, she was intentional. I know Ashley does it with her kids. I know that Sherry does it in her work that she does with children, and many others that I've seen commenting. We have been intentional about that. And so I'm challenging us. Continue to be that light to let other people know that it's okay to let people come into their own,
Yeah.
regardless of what age they are. We have to allow people to see what their heart desire is, not
Yeah.
what we think is
Yeah.
best for them. Like, oh, I saw you can draw, so now I need you to be the next, major artist. That may
Yeah.
not be what they want. They may be into finances. Art may be
Yeah.
their hobby. So we have to
Yeah.
be intentional about allowing people to come into their own and grow into those spaces. So Shan, shout out to your daughter and that comment that you posted.
Yeah.
And Dr. Danny, you just leading us. Keep asking us these questions because this is good.
Well,
This is good.
I got a little humor. Now, you probably have never experienced this, but let me tell you something. Anybody in here who's gone through like the weight loss programs, like Jenny Craig or Weight Watchers, those people push you, but you pay to get pushed. Okay. Every time you go in for a meeting, they are pushing you to ensure that you are reaching your goal weight, that you are doing what you said as far as activities go. Anyway, I say it because it's such a wonderful model, although you're paying for it. But that's where you go in there. The person comes and shows them and says, I want to lose 20 pounds. So when you are losing the weight, they're saying, well, what are you doing? What are you doing wrong? Let me push you some more. Let me give you the tools you need. So I say that because even in life, when you are pushing someone, don't just push them, but help them, give them the tools and resources they need to be better, to
That's good.
do better. There's nothing wrong with tough love, but don't tell me what I'm doing wrong without helping me find out how to get it right.
But I'm gonna say this: beauty standards were
Very.
not designed for us.
Yeah.
So what are we pushing out, especially our young girls? I
Yeah.
want to be this size. And it's funny, let me tell you again, Shirley Ralph at the Golden Globes, her speech. If you haven't, not just type it
Yeah.
in, just type in Shirley
Yeah.
Ralph Golden Globe interview. And
Mhm.
she mentioned to what would she say to her 15-year-old self? And I thought that was so powerful when she
Yeah.
mentioned the part about your lips are okay, they're beautiful. Your shape
Yeah.
is okay, it's beautiful because there are Kardashians, there are wealthy white women and other women who have wealth that are trying to have the features that you have. But
Yeah.
the beauty standards don't tell our children that they're beautiful. It tells black girls that you are overweight. You are too heavy. Nobody is going to want you. You need to get some makeup because you need to cover this up. You need to do that. And I'm just like, okay, we got to be able to accept people for who they truly are. And
Mhm.
even in those standards, how are we pushing people? A couple of years back, the young lady, I don't know if she was Miss Universe or Miss America, she committed suicide.
Yes.
Again, these heavy beauty standards
Mhm.
that we're placing on people, we're pushing people. You got to be the standard.
Yeah.
You have to be here. We saw the Whitney movie. Lord have mercy. We saw
Yeah.
the Whitney. I love Whitney, so that does something for me. But
I
just
didn't know
in,
that. I didn't know you love Whitney.
oh yes,
I'm
when
just
I'm
kidding.
writing a book, I'll be
I'm
able to
just kidding.
share my why I have that love for Whitney. It's not, we know she's the voice and all of that, but there's a method behind the madness. Uh, I'm sharing that because it's important for us to realize that even within the movie, it reflected how she was pushed.
Yeah.
Family needs this. Somebody needs this. Uh, People are depending on you, and so you're constantly being pushed. And I'm
Mhm.
looking at Ray comment. I'm like, you don't even know. See, that's how like
Red got
people
me
be saying,
cracking up
making
over
comments.
here.
Sometimes you don't know. Uh, Sometimes you're pushed
Yeah.
in directions that are not meant for you. Viola Davis talks in her book about how when she was in Broadway and just breaking in, it was a push from her family because the expectation was, oh, you're doing this. And so we need the lights to be paid. We need
Yeah.
clothes. We need food. And so it's a constant push to be able to help others when you're barely surviving on your own. And
Yeah.
so that is the realization and connection to all of these people that have been mentioned. Sometimes people see your gift and say, oh, that person can withstand. Let me keep pushing them. Organization leaders. I'm
Yeah.
talking to you. A lot of times we are pushed because we're leading. And when you're the leader, people feel like that you carry all the weight. Look at Dr. King. Look at these civil rights leaders. Look
Right.
at teachers that have fallen from strokes and heart attacks because they're being pushed by educational standards. Oh, these kids are not passing these standardized tests that we already know are prejudiced and biased against them, but we're going to keep pushing you
Yeah.
to make them get over a hurdle that wasn't designed for them to get over anyway. We're pushing people to their demise and literally are watching it happen. Watching people be pushed into their demise because we think that, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. Leaders are supposed to do this. They're supposed to take this on. They're supposed to carry all of this weight. Organizations that we have in our community, foundations. We are foundation leaders and we are pushed because it's like, this is our mission. People need help. And at the end of the day, we want to help people, but we're being pushed to carry the weight on our own.
Okay, so then this is really, I'm really glad you said that, because I think what's interesting about leaders, a lot of leaders, is we push ourselves.
Mm.
So my question would be, how do you know you've pushed yourself too far?
I
That's
think
a
that we
big
do know.
question.
I mean, y'all know I'm a share because at the end of the day, I'm going to just be me. But the last 2 years, and you know, some parents and those who are on may know this, but I was on high blood pressure medication.
Hmm.
And it was because I was pushing. When I look back over the last 10 years and being a board chair of Ivy, being a school administrator, leading my community, running for school board, all of these different things, that was a major push.
Yeah.
It was a heaviness because it's a lot to be able to do that. And because I know what my calling is, it was heavy. And I kept pushing myself because I was like, but I got to keep pushing because this school needs to stay open for these girls. They need a safe space. Their
Yeah.
families don't have anywhere else to go, and they need. So I kept pushing myself. These students need a quality special education program to break the stigma that, oh, learning differently is bad. And so a lot of times our calling can push us, but people will see that we're pushing ourselves, and they'll just say, oh, well, Jason got it. He gonna do it. If I'm on the team and I'm not doing my part, and I know it's important, but I know Jason gonna fill in and make sure it happens. I know that Leela is gonna make sure that this program goes through. I know that Dr. Danny is gonna make sure that this happens, even if I see that they're falling, even if I see that they weak. I'ma still let them keep pushing because the expectation is, well, when I drop the ball and I don't show up, they're gonna do it.
Right.
And so now I'm challenging us as followers because we all are followers and then we're leaders in our own right. You got to you got to have balance in everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm challenging us to look at how we're supporting leaders and how we are also being a leader in different aspects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is good stuff, I tell you.
Yeah, this is
I just want to
good.
give you. I just want to give you that embrace. You know that that new MLK monument in Boston. I want to give you one of those.
Okay, now let's talk about this because
Yes.
I done seen some ignorant comments on social media. Y'all, it's art. You may not like it, and it's amazing to me how even people have sexualized this statue because that's where our minds go. God got to help. Lord, God got to help us. God got to help us. When in studying Dr. King, and then I read the artist, I said, oh, okay, because at first I was like, this is interesting. What is going on? That was my first thought. I said, this is interesting. What story is this telling?
Yeah.
And when I researched it, I looked at the artist, I looked at their connection to Dr. King. Why is that moment important? First of all, as Black and brown people, we don't embrace ourselves enough.
That's
and
right.
That is why it was like, oh, now it's funny and people are laughing at it. And it could have been this, and they should have put a head on it. Well, baby, first of all, you're not the artist. You didn't create it. You didn't see the vision. And just because you don't see the vision, that's okay. But don't try to tear down what someone's art is and what their story is because you don't connect to it, because that is a very powerful piece. That was a very powerful moment. I don't even think people realize what leaders go through. There's the fact that they killed Dr. King. Let's be very clear. They killed him not for peace. They killed him because he wanted economic equality for Black and brown people, for people who were disenfranchised.
Yeah.
They killed him because when him and Malcolm started getting on the same page, their methods and their messages started sounding alike. They were like, now we're not going to have people living in peace and happy and advocating for economic advancement and what they deserve, because we ain't set up for that. We didn't set up America to truly be for all. We set up America to be for us.
Yeah.
So now you're a threat. And so when you think about that, that embrace is impactful because he received the Nobel Peace Prize, where even with the things that come with that, it went to the community. It went to the movement.
Yes.
And so his wife understanding the sacrifice. See, sometimes we overlook sacrifice and we don't understand sacrifice. And so even with pushing people, even with the push, we don't understand sacrifice a lot of times. I'm connecting this to parents that are pushing every day. They're making the sacrifices. Parents that are getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning. They got to drop their kids off at a neighbor's house or a sister or a brother to make sure that their kids get into the school that's going to be the best for them. Parents working 2 or 3 jobs to make sure that not just the lights are on, but that my child can get the occupational therapy, or they can be in a program, they can go to ballet, they can be connected to the things that they love. The sacrifices that we make as individuals for our communities, for our families. I'm taking on another job so I can make sure that my parents are okay, that my siblings have what they need, that my community is better. Sometimes we forget the impact of sacrifice. And so, Dr. Danny, you bringing up that statue, that's what it represented. It represented the sacrifice that he made. And in that moment of embrace, it was that, baby, I understand. The sacrifice of Miss King and what she gave up.
That's right.
But that's it. That's my spiel on the statue. So I get people laughing, they not understanding and all of that. I get it. But that art, that piece of art is telling a story about the significance of embrace. And if we were able to just embrace each other a little bit more.
Yes. But the artist pushed us to think outside the box.
Come on,
He pushed us to see not who the person was as much as the act, the embrace. That was the push. And we needed to be pushed. We all needed to see Dr. King in a different way, Mrs. King in a different way. So that was the push. Job well done.
Yeah, I would definitely say we have to be a little bit more intentional.
Yeah.
And just mindful. Everybody has a perspective. Everybody has a problem. Everybody has an experience. Everybody has a story.
Absolutely.
But it's also how we embrace each other in love. And I think that's a good way to make the connection across all. How are we embracing each other? You know, if I'm intentional about your life, Dr. Danny is a great friend of mine. This is, I mean, and I say friend in the realm of this is family.
Yeah.
Like you know, maybe 40, 50 years from now, you're going to be in the family section. Like this is family, right? You have those connections with people and you're pushing them because you want them to be their best selves. Pushing people means that you have honest conversations. You have hard conversations. You are real with each other. You know, you are intentional about listening. You're intentional about saying thank you. I started out the year by writing loved ones letters, because I wanted to be intentional about, I'm not just pushing you to greatness. I'm not just pushing you to be your best self. I want you to really know that I love you, that I appreciate you, that I see the sacrifices that you're making. I see your life work. I see your purpose, and I value that. And, you know, I'm so thankful for over this weekend, my cousin, I know they're in California time, so she's going to go back and rewatch this. And it's like, okay, you better talk this up on the show. I'm just so thankful about intentionality and being able to see people's purpose and being able to listen to their heart. Yeah. And a lot of times we don't get a chance to do that. And a lot of times we don't tell people what they mean to us until it's too late. And
Yeah.
so being a little bit more intentional about letting that teacher at the school know, hey, I value you. And not just because you're a great teacher, because I see your passion for children. I see the sacrifices that you're making to make sure that not just my child, but this group of children are being elevated into something that is going to impact their families and our community. Male lady, I see you. Thank you. You always showing up. You making sure that when I need something, it's here. When you're going through life,
Yeah.
be intentional about that. Be intentional about pushing people to be their best selves by letting them know that I see you, that I value you, that I value your purpose. It sounds good, but it's also something that is not happening. People don't hear that. People don't. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm challenging us to be pushed in a direction to be intentional about elevating, embracing, and empowering other people to be their
Yeah.
best selves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
Yes.
I know one of the last thoughts I thought of was, are you pushing people and seeing them only when they fail? Or are you also acknowledging the wins? Because that's another thing too. And I think of like the reference of like the drill sergeant who will be on you, who will be on you because you're every time you're doing something wrong, they will tell you you're doing something wrong. But remember that the other part of pushing is acknowledging when people are doing things right. You got to be a cheerleader also.
Yes. I Marika Chisholm, I don't know if she's on this early. She's normally is up. I've always admired Marika. I watched her in ministry over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when the late great Dr. Maurice Culpepper passed away,
Mm-hmm.
and how she served. It was so, it moved me.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're not close like that. I just have always supported her from afar and support her, especially after that moment. I acknowledge that, wow, she is serving. This is her purpose. She filled in the gap during that time when people were hurting. They were trying to get through it. So that was a major loss
Yeah.
for the community here in Atlanta, especially those musicians
Yeah.
in the gospel community, because he held people accountable in love. And so that was 60 years of a legacy uh, that he left. And I'm bringing up Marika because she recently made a post about Kevin Lemons, who passed away. We mentioned Kevin last week, and she was like, "I wish that a lot of the people that are giving accolades and condolences and tributes and all of these things, you know, would have done this when he was here to see it."
Right.
And that resonated with me so loudly because my cousin is on. It resonated with me so
Okay.
loudly because people didn't appreciate his legacy. My cousin spoke to that this weekend. Being able to appreciate people while they're here,
Yeah.
letting them know that their legacy matters. You made a difference, and that is just important. I'm bringing that up because people are making a sacrifice to share their gifts with us, to share their gifts with the world in order for people to be better, in
Yeah.
order for people to get to their next place of happiness, of joy, of peace. And, you know, they want to know that is impacting you, that is
Yeah.
making a difference. And so, one of the things that my great grandmother would always say, it's in my email,
Mm.
she would always say thank you. That was her big thing, to let people know that I appreciate you. I realized that you took time to do this. You didn't have to do this. You didn't have to make the investment. You didn't have to sacrifice. You didn't have to stop and say, hey, ma'am, you dropped something. Just the small things like that. When people, drop things and, people may forget things and people say, oh, you forgot this, or hey, you know, thank you, because that lets them know that while I appreciate you acknowledging that I dropped something or
Yeah.
that I forgot something and you didn't have to do that. And
Right.
so making sure that we're intentional about telling people thank you. I appreciate you. I see you making the sacrifice. That's important. It's important for community. It's important for healing. It's important for us to embrace each other in that manner. So yes,
Absolutely.
I love that. Now, Dr. Danny, I was trying to see if let me tell you, I ain't gonna fuss at JT clients because I'm like, I am one of JT clients, and I'm like, don't wait to the last minute to get stuff done.
Mhm.
But JT is gonna be back with us on next week. I know
He
he gonna
better
have a
be.
story to tell us because he's gonna go and rewatch this. And yeah, I am calling them out because we missed our inspiration, and of course, we missed our buddy in hosting the show. But as we get ready to close out, guys, we have some final nuggets that we're going to drop. We want to be intentional about, again, how are we pushing people? And are we
Yeah.
pushing people over their limits and too far? So, Dr. Danny, I'm going to pass the mic back to you before we close on out this
Okay.
morning.
Well, I have a dream that one day JT will come back onto the show so that I can push him to be his best, to be his best self, to bring his best art, to bring his best creativity. And as I push him, I know that he will do in return. He will reciprocate that. He will push both of us to be our best. So I say all that to say this. Find your people, find your village, and find the people that you can push, but can also inspire and push you. And maybe we don't need to say the word push. Maybe we should say encourage. But I don't know. But I say find your people.
Find your people. Look, at the end of the day, find your people. Um, Listen, guys, thank you for tuning in to the I Win Morning Show. Let's keep sharing and pushing. I'll be back on this evening at 7:15. I have an amazing guest. We're kicking off season 3. And it's just going to be good conversation. And I think that we need to have more conversations that are honest and
Yeah.
that are real because at the end of the day, I'm trying to help people be free. On my shirt, shout out to Profound Gentleman, my shirt says love. And that is what the world needs. The world needs more love, and we need us to show up in that manner. You are the light. So keep pushing yourself
Yeah.
to be the light, even in darkness. As we think about our civil rights leaders and those who have made sacrifices, it's hard to swallow that pill. If you go back and think about some of the things that they had to live through, I always would listen to the stories and say, God, I'm glad that you ordained me to be here during this time.
Yeah.
Because if you think that I'm hell on wheels now, baby, they would have, it maybe it would have been a little different. And some of us were there during that time because they would have been like, no, humble yourself. You got to be quiet.
You
It
would
was
have
a
said,
sacrifice with that though. And I would have been like, oh, baby, I'm
no.
going to humble myself, but you just wait till you go to sleep. See, it would have just been something. I would have been like, no, you hit this woman. Oh, I would have been, I would have been.
Jason, I'm with you on that because I would have been on that bus going, my feet hurt, and I am not. I would have pulled the Rosa Parks too, and then I would have said, and
I would have been like, what? But I applaud them. I'm honoring all of our ancestors, those whose names we don't even call and those names we don't even know. The sacrifices of the everyday person who is going into these fields and these jobs that they're overlooked, they're underappreciated. Make sure you tell. That's why I'm from the janitor in the school to those people who work in the post office to those people who are in the fast food industry, the hotel industry. Tell people thank you. Valet, tell them thank you. Appreciate people. I don't care if you're paying them or not. Still tell people thank you. Give them that common courtesy. So that's it, y'all. Big question for today. Are we pushing people too far? How are we pushing people? Think about that. Think about the pressure that our young people are in a system called public education that was not designed for them to succeed. How are we pushing them? How are we pushing teachers? How are we pushing ourselves to be better? And now I'm going to end on this one last thought. I'm going to say this because we pushing us and we're not pushing back against the system like we need to. We're not pushing it back against the systems that are confining us and telling us that we're less than, that we're not good enough, that we're, oh, you're big, so you need to lose weight, or oh, you're ugly, you need to put makeup on. We're not pushing back against these systems that are telling us that we are less than. And a lot of that is because it's easier to control a person or someone who we can see that we say that doesn't have the power, and it's harder to push back against the system that we have seen take so many of our people out. But if we collectively stand up and say, hey, this is not who we're going to be, then we're pushing for change and we can do it together. So we out, y'all. This is the I Win Morning Show. Now I do miss JT because he does all the fancy stuff with the with the music and the da, da, da,
Right.
but you know, we love y'all. Now we gonna go ahead and close out for the day. We love y'all. Peace and Wakanda forever on the I Win Morning Show, and we will be back next week.
Bye.